Let's continue this work on this Caravaggio-esque portrait of Paul the Apostle praying. Hey, Mattphilleo here, working on my 16 by 20 commission acrylic portrait. And today I want to show you how to do the Tenebristic Chiaroscuro technique in the old master's classical tradition, adapted for acrylics. Now, this is not a perfect translation of that technique, but it's as close as I can get within a method that'll work for the way I do my portraits. So I've already started this process. You can check out the first video in the series. I should have a link in the description that you can click on to see how I began this process. And also I think I'll have a playlist for this as well, so check out the playlist. But what I'm doing is just adding in these highlights using a mixture of titanium white and some raw sienna mixed together, and with some matte medium to thin it out so I can basically use some shading and nuance in certain areas. In other words, I can make some areas a little lighter and some areas a little bit darker. So I put down a mid-tone, kind of a raw umber glaze over the whole thing. I actually did 3 layers of that on top of my sketch, where I also had a couple glazes of ultramarine blue and raw umber dark mixed together to get in some of the shadows. And that's why you can see, for example, this wall is darker than the window here. I'm basing it off of this right here, this particular image I did. This is a photographic reference. That's yours truly posing there. And this is what I'm basing my painting off of. So I'm trying to get that nice dramatic chiaroscuro effect. But I'm going to show you the process here and just continue where I left off. And so right now we're going to be working on more of the clothing, the hands. Of course, that's a very important part because I'm trying to portray him praying. And I'm going to just let you watch behind my shoulder as I paint. And I hope it's helpful and informative for you. So let's go ahead and we'll use a small round brush. This is a size 4. It's just a little round brush. And we'll pick up where we left off. Now again, we have titanium white, raw sienna mixed together, some matte medium, and we're keeping the ratio, I would say, about 50-50 between the paint and the medium. And if you've never painted with the glazing technique, again, I use an acrylic matte medium. It's just Liquitex or Nova Color. This is what I use. It's milky white, dries crystal clear. I mix it with my paints, and it's what allows me to get this incredible blending, shading, and vibrance. And you can experience that in your portraits too, because many of my students have followed this technique. I learned it from an artist, about 25 years, more than 25 years ago, and you can learn it as well. Just follow along in this channel. By the way, if you'd like to learn more, I have a free PDF guide called Fix Muddy Skin Tones in Your Acrylic Portrait. That's a thing that many artists struggle with, and I would love to give that away to you for free. So you can go ahead and pick that up just by clicking the description in the video. There's a link there. Also in the top comment, Fix Muddy Skin Tones in Your Acrylic Portrait. Click that link. Go ahead, download the free PDF guide. I'll show you several techniques on how to keep your skin tones from getting muddy. And if they do get muddy, I'll show you how to fix it. So be sure to get that free guide. And I'll be giving that to you, like I said, for free, just to say thanks for watching this channel. All right, so right now I'm adding a little highlight on his arm because that's important. The way the clothing and the wrinkles work in the arm are super important, and we want to make sure we get the right shape, the right structure, the right lighting. Now I do have a sketch that I did in colored pencil underneath this, and you can see that sketch. So I used like a dark umber, I believe it was the color I used, so that works really well with this ground, with this raw umber dark ground. And now I'm adding a thin little highlight right here on this part of the clothing, and I just love this. I love putting in these little wrinkles on the clothing. I think it just adds so much character So if you put them in the right places, just by looking at your reference photo, study that reference photo, really try to replicate the shapes that you see, and that's a huge part of creating realism. Be looking at that reference photo all the time. You want to be looking at the reference photo at least 50% of the time, and that's going to really help as you're working on your portrait. Okay, so just getting some of these highlights. Now here we have a little bit of a curvature of the form, so we're going to establish that. Already as I'm working in this way, because this is a little different than how I normally work. Normally I work in a more just painting on a white canvas or a lightly toned canvas. This feels more Renaissance to me. And I think I've seen a few unfinished painting sketches done by the old masters, and I remember seeing this as part of their process, that they'd have the very kind of dark brown canvas, because that's how it was, you know, when it was raw, and they applied whatever they applied for a ground, you know, linseed oil mixed with earth and plaster or whatever they put into it to get their ground. This really reminds me of that, and it almost is like a connection point of going back centuries ago to the times of the old masters, where we really can trace back so much of what we know in art to their process. And we wouldn't be able to really paint how we paint today without the stepping stones of what they did years ago and what they discovered and how they imparted that to us. It's something to keep in mind. Let's see if I can grab a slightly larger brush here. And I got a size, what is this? I don't know. It's, and all the sizes are different depending on the manufacturer, but this one's a little bit thicker. The writing on it's worn off, but I'm just going to use this because I think I can get a little bit of a thicker application here. I can dab it a little bit. Excuse me. And just control how light or how dark this is. So again, we're going light on dark, a little bit different, but I will be glazing on top of this using glazes with matte medium to really get the to get that final look and the vibrance that we're going for in this. So it looks like maybe I'm just a little off on the form. I guess this actually is a little thinner, and this is going to come over a little wider right here. So let's just get that true width of this edge of the arm of the sleeve. So that comes down. I'm using some straight brush strokes, and then I'm just allowing this ground then to be the mid-tone. And it's just a really nice way to progress yourself in the painting and feel like you're further along. Of course, there's going to be a lot of work to do getting in the nuances, but yeah, I kind of like this. So I might be doing more of this process depending on the painting and what it needs. I don't think this works well for every kind of portrait. I think if you're doing it like a portrait with outdoor lighting and you got some vibrant colors, this might not work. But in certain scenarios like this, where we've got a predominantly dark background, we're trying to create a lot of drama in the image, I think something like this can work pretty well. Now, here's where you can get into trouble with this. If you start seeing some differences in your reference photo, for example, right here, of seeing, oh, this is lighter than this, so maybe I should use that glaze and put it in right there. And then I caught myself doing that, and I had to say, nope, I can't do that because this value, well, let's go back to the reference photo, that's darker, way, way darker than these lighter values up here. And so I should not use this color for that. I should rather just let the mid-tone of the ground be that color. And I can differentiate it by using some darker values on top. So we want to be careful not to overdo this contrast. Like right here, I'll be isolating the arm, but let's actually take this and thin it out with some matte medium. Just make it a little more translucent so that when we apply this, it's actually going to go on a little bit lighter. See how it's less dramatic now? And that makes a difference. So now we apply this, and that's a little more in accordance with what we're going for, with what we're shooting for here. There's a little bit of a shape I'm going for, like this. I want to capture that, and then it comes down, and that highlight right there. There's a couple little seams here. I don't know if I want to put in all the textural seams like we have in the reference photo or not. I don't think that's necessarily appropriate because the clothing that I modeled with to do this image was kind of like a Renaissance clothing. So I don't know if all these little seams, I'll show you the seams in here. See that texture? I don't know if I want to put that in. Probably not. Probably just leave that be. All right, so a little bit of contrast there. Down here, I might just leave that on the bottom, leave that be, these areas down there. But I might do something else for that. For right now though, time to work on the hands. So maybe I'll go back to that smaller round brush so I can get some really good precision. And we'll start getting in some of these highlights here on the hand. So again, the wrist has a bit of a highlight. So I'll just maybe put a bit right there on the wrist, just dab it off, just to maybe suggest some of the veins. But where I really want to have that highlight is like on the thumb, and that's going to be a little bit lighter. So here we do want to use a lighter color that can catch some of the light. We have the shape of that thumb there. And I want to make sure I know what's lighter and what's darker. So I want to at all times be aware of whether the finger, the knuckle, all of those areas are lighter or darker than the object behind them. Now the object behind in this case would be his shoulder. So I'm just being aware of that. And I want to use this paint just about full strength. So we're going to add some titanium white to this. Mix it with a raw umber dark. I'll just spray it a little bit with my sprayer to make it fluid, but I do want it to be pretty opaque. So I don't want to use too much matte medium. All right, and now let's give that a shot. Hopefully this will work. Add just a bit more raw sienna to it. A little more titanium white. Again, I want this to be pretty opaque. Okay. I'll know when I have the right feel of this, when it's flowing really well. I think this is better, what I have right now. Sometimes you have to try it a few times till you get it the way you want it. All right, so now we're putting in the shapes of these knuckles. I'm just going to zoom this in a little bit too so you can really see what's going on. Putting in the shapes. This goes down, and then we get in this shape right here. Okay, that's good. Now we get in this next shape, and again, I'm just following the reference photo, what I'm seeing in that reference photo. Just trying to accurately depict those shapes. That's all we're doing. Not being too concerned about gradations. Now this shape's a little larger, so we'll capture that. This shape, larger. And I'm not going to do the highlights below because those values are darker in general, so we'll kind of stop short right there. But I do want to just make sure I have my shapes accurate. Like here we have a little more of an angle, so I want to make sure I get that in. And then this maybe comes down just a bit more. I have to reload my brush. Just make sure we've got that shape doing what it needs to do. And then this actually kind of curves down. There's a highlight of that. I'm not sure which finger that would be. Maybe the ring finger or middle finger. We want that to be going where it needs to go. These connect a little bit. All right, and then we have the wrist, and that's light enough. We do want to use this paint to inscribe that highlight there. All right, bring that down. There we go. Let me step out a little bit. You can see how this looks. And yeah, overall, I like it. I like it. And I do want to do just a little bit of work on the face that was neglected from before. We'll just add a little bit of this shading on the mustache. I'm going to just thin out that glaze just so it's not too bright. We'll just put a little bit of a highlight there. And yeah, because that section is a little bit lighter in general. I want to make sure I have that differentiation there. A couple little textures in the beard that are being caught. We'll have to make sure the value's not too light. And maybe I'll get that later. Yeah, maybe I'll get that in later. I'll just put a little bit more shading right here on the clothing. Because this area in general kind of has a strong wrinkle that I want to get in. Bring that down. Okay. So I'm going to leave off right here. We have a little bit more shading we can do, but this is a pretty good idea of what you can capture. Just want to find a good stopping point. Okay, so this is not finished. I have a little bit more that I can do below here. The scroll and this blanket and this pottery, and then of course the window, so there's more I can do, and I'll show you that in the next video. But anyway, I hope that this helped you here and gave you some insights as far as what you can do in this process of doing a Caravaggio-esque tenebristic chiaroscuro. Boy, that's a mouthful. But just to show you what you can do doing a dark ground and then doing more of the traditional classical painting technique. And this is what they would call indirect painting. So we're not doing it all, in one layer, but we're doing it layer upon layer. So I look forward to sharing more on this process. Thank you so much for watching. Get my Fix Muddy Skin Tones in your acrylic portrait guide, and get the value checker tool. That's in the other video. Like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.